How's it going?
Not so good, Doc.
Something specific?
Have you seen what George R.R. Martin said about The Winds of Winter? We're never getting that book.
I hear depression talking.
No, but this time it's serious. He said, and I quote, "I don't know, I think I'll stay home. I have to write more Dunk and Egg. There's supposed to be another Fire and Blood book too. I do think if I can get some of these other things off my back, I could finish Winds of Winter pretty soon. It's been made clear to me Winds is the priority, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm not in the mood for that. I'm so far behind on everything." It just made me realize, with A Song of Ice and Fire, Berserk, Hunter x Hunter, I'm never gonna get to know how it was all supposed to end.
Why is that so important for you to know?
Why is it so important to know the ending? Let's come back to that question. First, you read the title, so let me ask, how do you define a masterpiece? A masterpiece is a work of outstanding artistry, skill, yeah, nigga, I can use Google too. What I mean is, what do you think of as a masterpiece? Today, it's used as a fairly generic adjective along the lines of good or great. Film bros or art critics might reserve the word for what they deem to be the cream of the crop, but even then, it's all a little nebulous. But it wasn't always that way. See, back in the day, a masterpiece was the final work produced by an apprentice craftsman in order to achieve the rank of master within their guild. Hence the name Masterpiece. These works needed to be more than good. They were meant to display all the skills and principles that they had acquired along their apprenticeship. In a sense, they were the sum of all their past works and the embodiment of the artist themselves. In terms of modern masterpieces, I think of Hunter x Hunter, Berserk, A Song of Ice and Fire, and I am unfortunate enough to say that there was a time right around 2020 where if you asked me what my top 3 favorite IPs of all time were, this would have been the list. Why yes, Doc, that is where the depression started. And although I'm sort of joking, I'm also sort of not. In a culture so obsessed with nonchalance where not caring is all people care about, it might seem silly to admit I am genuinely sad the series will likely never receive their proper conclusions. And yet, I am. I am a fan of these works, and the relationship between fan and creator is an interesting one. We live in a day and age where enjoying art is enjoying the artist. Their personality, beliefs, and overall vibe they bring are all pieces of the product now. Parasociality is the norm, and fans feel entitled to a certain degree of the artist's life and privacy, which inevitably leads to embarrassing incidents like this.
Here's the thing, George, you're not going to be around for much longer. And this is a tough question that I wanted to ask. This is more directed at Brandon. No. Wait, I was wondering, like, how would you feel about someone else taking over and finishing the books?
I wouldn't be surprised if this stunt single-handedly delayed George's next book by another half-decade, and it wasn't too long after this incident that George gave the interview I started with. I remember talking to a friend shortly after that interview came out, and he said something that really stuck with me. "Hey man, does it bother you that since George isn't gonna finish the books, Season 8 is essentially the closest thing we're ever gonna get to a canon conclusion?" And make no mistake, behavior like this shouldn't be excused, but I'm gonna be honest, I think she does have a point.
You need to leave!
Alright, hold up, hear me out. Look at Swifties, K-pop stans, or any other domestic terrorist group, and you'll see that these absolute juggernauts of the industry couldn't exist without a healthy dose of utter delusion. Your favorite fandoms need people who will buy every skin, purchase every collector's edition, who will pay $1,000 to sit in the front row. The entertainment industry runs on stans. Your favorite artist or creator probably wouldn't be nearly as successful without them. People like her aren't just a consequence of fame, they're a prerequisite. Ultimately, the answer lies somewhere in the middle, a happy compromise wherein fans can feel their investment is warranted, yet the creator doesn't feel like they're starring in the sequel to Misery. That's well and good, but doesn't quite answer the question that began her outburst. Why is it so important to know the ending? Let me ask, how many of you are familiar with the stage play Rorschach? That is a rhetorical question, of course. No one who doesn't count themselves among the theater intelligentsia has any idea what that is, but lock in because I'm about to make my point here. Rorschach is a 19th century play written by German playwright Georg Büchner. I am sure I mispronounced that. The protagonist Rorschach is a poor and lonely soldier stationed near the home of a woman who he's had a child with out of wedlock. He participates in questionable medical trials for some extra cash, gets cheated on, and then gets beat up by the guy who cucked him. Basically, his life sucks. He's like the protagonist of an isekai anime before they get all their broken powers. In a fit of rage one day, he murders the mother of his child and tries to clean up the scene by disposing of the evidence in a nearby pond. The story holds an eerie parallel to a similar case of fling-turned-murder committed by, what do you know, one Johann Rorschach. The play is incredibly influential, especially in German theater, but perhaps what it is best known for is the fact that it's incomplete. Büchner died of typhus at just 23 years old, leaving nothing but notes and fragments of the story that people would later compile into a finished play. And that really is finished with enormous air quotes around it. There is no third act. We don't know what happens after the murder, but that hasn't stopped plenty of authors from theorizing. The theater intelligentsia are obsessed with the piece because of its lack of an ending. After all, the ending is paramount. It's the coalescence of the entire work. Does it end with Rorschach drowning in a pond, as some suggest? That conveys a very different message than if he is brought to court and tried for his crimes. Even still, what happens to his daughter or the man who beat and humiliated him? Does he seek vengeance, or does he only murder the vulnerable mother of his child? That could certainly say a lot. And authors have had a field day throughout the centuries making their own ending to the story. But the tragedy in all of this is that without Büchner here to answer these questions, we are simply left to speculate what any of the story he wrote even really means. But we can apply this to so much more. The open-ended finale of The Sopranos is still debated to this day. Theories on how Lost or Mad Men would end actually boosted the popularity of both shows immensely. There is a reason we often don't even bother watching something if we've had the ending spoiled ahead of time. Endings give us closure, a sense of meaning. Clearly, regardless of all the millennial-coded Quora quotes, people still care a hell of a lot about the destination. As audience members, these stories have to mean something, right? How else can we invest so much of ourselves in them? How can the authors, for that matter? Takashi, the mangaka behind Hunter x Hunter, has stated just how awful his chronic back pain really is, and yeah, he paints a pretty nightmarish condition I wouldn't wish on anyone. And yet, he still releases chapters. Slowly, very slowly, but he is still drawing. George R. R. Martin knows just how disappointed fans are. The thought had to have crossed his mind at least once that a fan might do something like this, so why does he still show up to these panels? And a cynical sort of person might say it's to hold on to fame, or relive the glory days. Maybe they're right, but I don't think so. Between Miura, George, and Togashi, they put a combined 94 years into their respective series. I don't believe it's possible for an artist to put so much of their life into a work and simply not care. Imagine for a second if Tolkien never completed Lord of the Rings. What if Gandalf came back and just sort of cut off there? How much of the story do you think we'd guess correctly? Some, probably. All of it? Certainly not. People would speculate the IP would be less famous, less good, but worse of all, people would see it as less Tolkien. Without the conclusion of the original author, it would be very difficult to view Lord of the Rings as the embodiment of Tolkien's work. A dissertation of the man itself, it would cease to be Tolkien's masterpiece, and instead, just be good. The masterpiece is the end result of so much time, experience, and effort. It is the soul of an artist. And that going unfinished is a reminder of just how limited our time here really is. Limited by blocks, mental or physical. Limited by motivation, time, or drive. And yes, of course, limited by permanence itself. But I do think there is a lesson to be learned here. Embrace that passion while you have it. Get to writing that screenplay for the movie you always imagined. Storyboard that comic book that you just know would be a hit. Or maybe start that YouTube channel you've always dreamed of since you were a kid, eh? Thank you so much for watching. God bless and have a wonderful night.